Welcome to Deep Dive Lab, where we break down and dissect cutting-edge scientific research. From advanced biomedical technologies to breakthroughs in AI, materials science, chemistry, and physics, all told as compelling, easy-to-follow stories. And today, we're starting with something you've probably argued about on the internet. Do you remember the dress?
Oh, wow. Yeah. The infamous blue and black or white and gold debate. I mean, that completely fractured the internet for what, a few weeks?
It really did. And it was just
Yeah.
this, single terrible quality photo of a dress. But half the people looking at the exact same pixels saw white and gold, and the other half absolutely swore it was blue and black.
Right. And the fascinating thing wasn't really the dress itself. It was what it revealed about how our brains process information.
Exactly. Like neuroscientists pointed out that the dress illusion happened because of background lighting. Your brain makes this unconscious assumption about the lighting in the room. And depending on what lighting your brain assumes is there, it completely alters the colors you actually see.
Yeah. If you change the underlying assumption, the entire picture fundamentally changes. It just perfectly illustrates how our perception is, well, completely at the mercy of our hidden baseline assumptions.
And that actually brings us to today's deep dive. Because here's a strange question for you.
Mhm.
Why does the so-called ADHD brain look like it's developing slower than everyone else's?
That is the question. I mean,
Yeah.
that essentially defined developmental neuroscience for, gosh, the better part of 2 decades.
Right. But scientists recently discovered a mind-blowing answer that completely rewrote a 20-year-old medical textbook belief. And, I won't give away the ending just yet, but just like that dress, sometimes what the scientific community is absolutely certain they're seeing is just a statistical trick of the light.
Which is such a humbling reality in science. I mean,
Right.
researchers look at data, they see a clear pattern, and they build an entire diagnostic narrative around it. But if the mathematical assumptions you bring to that data are even slightly
The
off,
full picture is skewed.
exactly, the resulting picture is completely skewed.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the twist in this story, we really need to dig into the old dogma first. For nearly 20 years, the overwhelming scientific consensus was that ADHD and severe attention problems were physically visible in the brain as a literal maturational delay.
Right. And to understand what a maturational delay implies, we have to talk about the biology of cortical thinning.
Okay.
So as children grow into adolescence, the brain's outer layer, the cortex, it naturally gets thinner.
Which, for anyone casually listening, thinning brain sounds like a bad thing, like you're losing cognitive capacity or something.
It sounds totally counterintuitive, but it's actually the hallmark of a healthy, maturing brain.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the biological processes at play here are synaptic pruning and increased myelination.
Mm.
Basically, the brain is aggressively eliminating unused, inefficient neural connections.
So it's kind of like a sculptor, right? Chiseling away all this excess clay to reveal a really sharp, highly refined, efficient statue underneath.
That's a perfect analogy. A thinner cortex in certain areas means highly optimized executive function and attention.
Okay, so the sculpting is a good thing.
Yes. And because the sculpting process is so critical, researchers just naturally assume that children with attention deficits must have a delay in this process. And in 2007, they thought they found the exact proof.
Right, this is a landmark study published in PNAS by Shaw and colleagues.
Exactly. They tracked 223 children, some with ADHD, some typically developing controls, and they used MRI scans to measure their cortical thickness over time.
And the conclusion was massive, right? They said youth with ADHD lagged behind their peers by several years in this critical sculpting process.
Right, especially in the prefrontal cortex, which handles executive control. So it created this incredibly compelling narrative. You see ADHD behaviors, which often look immature, and now you have brain scans supposedly proving that their biological hardware is literally delayed.
But wait, I have to ask a crucial pushback question here. If this was such a landmark finding, why did subsequent replication efforts struggle so much? I mean, were the original scientists just seeing what they wanted to see?
Well, no, it wasn't bad faith at all. You have to remember the limitations of the era's technology. Getting 223 kids into an MRI machine in 2007 was a huge, expensive achievement.
Oh, sure.
But the narrative was just so compelling that it stuck. But as the years passed, scientists were increasingly noticing that when they tried to reproduce the study, the math was getting blurry.
Blurry how? Like, they couldn't find the delay.
Right. One group would find a slight delay, another would find nothing, another would find something completely different. It was behaving more like statistical noise than a universal biological rule.
So how did scientists figure this out? Because this is where the story gets really interesting.
It really does. So to untangle this, researchers realized they needed way more data. This brings us to a huge 2026 study, also published in PNAS by Dr. Shannon D. O'Connor, Dr. Matthew D. Albaugh, and their colleagues from the University of Vermont, UC San Diego, and the Laureate Institute for Brain Research.
And the scale of their method is just staggering. They didn't just use hundreds of kids.
No, not at all. They leveraged the ABCD study. That stands for the Adolescent Brain Cognitive Development Study.
Right.
We are talking about 26,496 MRI scans
Wow.
from 11,025 unique participants.
That is just an incomprehensible amount of data compared to the 223 kids from 2007.
It is. It gives you incredible statistical power.
Yeah.
So the researchers ran a direct attempt to replicate the old dogma. They pooled all the boys and girls together, and they mapped attention problems against the rate of cortical thinning.
And what did they find?
Well, initially, when they pooled everyone together, they actually did see the delay.
Wait, what? So the 2007 study was right?
That's what it looked like at first. Higher attention problem scores were associated with reduced rates of cortical thinning across 40 different brain regions.
You're totally torturing me with this setup. Where is the twist?
Okay, here's the twist. The researchers then added a specific mathematical chip to their model called an age-by-sex interaction.
An age-by-sex interaction. Okay, what does that actually mean?
It turns out male brains and female brains naturally mature on different timelines. Male brains naturally have slower rates of age-related cortical thinning than female brains.
Hold on. Didn't previous studies know that boys and girls develop differently?
They did, but they accounted for it wrong. Previous studies would just match their groups to have the same number of boys and girls. But they didn't mathematically account for the fact that male and female brains change at fundamentally different rates over time.
Oh, I see. It's like watching two trains moving at different speeds. Like, if you don't account for the fact that one train is simply a heavy freight train that just accelerates slower naturally, you might mistakenly diagnose it as having a broken engine just because it's behind the lighter passenger train.
That is exactly it. You're just looking at a freight train doing what a freight train does.
Right. And ADHD is diagnosed way more often in males, right?
Yes. So if your ADHD group is full of males, and male brains naturally thin slower.
You're going to see slower thinning. Not because of ADHD, but because you're just accidentally measuring male brain development.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is as soon as this age-by-sex interaction was included in the math, the delayed brain effect completely vanished.
Vanished, like totally gone.
Totally gone. 0 out of 40 regions showed the delay anymore. The 20-year-old biomarker was just an illusion.
That is absolutely mind-blowing. It really is the blue and black dress all over again. They had the wrong assumption about the background lighting.
Exactly, and they threw one more curveball into this study. They also looked at ADHD polygenic risk scores.
Okay, polygenic risk scores. That's basically a measure of your genetic liability for ADHD, right? Looking at your actual DNA.
Right. They wanted to know, does high genetic risk for ADHD equal delayed thinning?
And let me guess, the answer was no.
Not only was it no, but in 3 specific regions, the middle temporal, superior temporal, and transverse temporal regions, high genetic risk was linked to accelerated thinning.
Accelerated? Wait, really? That's the exact opposite of the 20-year dogma.
The exact opposite. So that delay scientists thought they saw in the ADHD brain was literally just them accidentally measuring the difference between how male and female brains develop.
So what does this all mean? I mean, why should the average person or, a parent of a kid with ADHD actually care about a statistical correction in brain scans?
Because it completely shatters how we view ADHD clinically. For 2 decades, our understanding has been shaped by the idea of a delayed brain. This study proves we cannot use cortical maturation patterns as diagnostic biomarkers for attention-related psychopathology.
It stops us from viewing these kids as biologically broken or delayed.
Exactly. It protects patients from being misunderstood by flawed diagnostic frameworks. Their brains aren't lagging, they just process attention differently.
That is so important.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it highlights a massive shift for future scientific research. We now know that if you want reproducible brain behavior connections, you need thousands of individuals, not hundreds.
Which is so exciting. It proves that science isn't just this dusty book of facts you memorize. It's a living, breathing investigation that constantly course corrects when we get better data and bigger MRI data sets.
It is the scientific method working exactly as it should.
So let's wrap this up for you listening at home. Here are the key takeaways. Number 1, ADHD does not cause a delay in the brain's cortical thinning. 2, The 20-year belief in this delay was an illusion caused by failing to account for how male and female brains age differently. And 3, large-scale data is absolutely vital to uncovering the truth.
And this raises an important question about human understanding itself. It just shows how easily humans, even brilliant, well-intentioned scientists, can mistake a confounding variable for a root cause if they don't look at the data from every possible angle.
Which leaves me with this thought. If a 20-year-old cornerstone of developmental neuroscience was completely inverted simply by accounting for how sex and age interact, what other established facts in modern medicine might be hiding similar statistical illusions?
It definitely makes you wonder what else we might be getting wrong.
It really does. Thank you for joining us in the Deep Dive Lab. Make sure to follow and subscribe for more science stories where we uncover the truth step by step.